Good afternoon. Here we are, we've lived through the conference, we've got to the last sessions, and we've saved the best two sessions till last. So there's absolutely no pressure on the speakers. We're going to start with Dr. Sven Martens, or Mertens, if I give it a Danish pronunciation, who is from the German Aerospace Centre, and he's going to talk about the development of passenger flows between Europe and the UAE. Pass it across to you.
Yeah, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. After this last great lunch we had, I hope you are not too sleepy, so I will do my best to wake you up a little bit with one of the last speeches today and during this conference. It's a joint work with Wolfgang, who's also sitting in the audience, and it's basically a descriptive look at the development of air passenger numbers between Europe and the UAE, with a special focus on OD passengers versus segment passengers, and I will explain in a minute what is meant about it. So, the background. We have obviously a strong air transport development in the UAE to the UAE from the UAE. And however, from a European perspective, Dubai and Abu Dhabi airports have traditionally been regarded as transfer points mostly for flights to India, Southeast Asia, Australia, and so on. Despite the UAE becoming an important tourist destination and point of origin in its own right. And accordingly, as far as we found out, there is little research on the evolution of OD flows to and from the UAE from Europe. That means of passenger flows which have the UAE as the origin or the final destination, people who want to visit the UAE. So the research questions we had were, first of all, to compare how OD versus segment, leg, route-based passenger numbers from Europe to the UAE have developed over time and in comparison. Second, which European countries still lack direct flights to the UAE? And third, we also wanted to find out what the largest indirect airport pairs between Europe and the UAE are, with no or only very limited direct flights, because probably those could be candidates for forthcoming new direct services. The structure, I think I will skip because it is the traditional structure you know from research papers, and the results, of course, are split according to the just mentioned research questions. Very briefly on the literature, there's vast literature on air transport in the UAE or in the Gulf region. It started in the, some 15, 20 years ago with papers mainly on the business model and success factors of the Gulf carriers. For example, work by Hooper or O'Connell or Vesperman. We then also had a number of papers between probably 2008 and 2015 on competition and traffic impacts the Gulf carriers have, for example, on European or US airlines, for example, by Wolfgang, who's, as I mentioned, sitting here as well. Papers on the efficiency of Gulf carriers and their hubs, and papers on the impact of new traffic rights. What we did not find in the literature were papers on origin-destination passenger numbers into the UAE and associated papers in this regard, or at least not so many papers in this regard. So this leaves some room for our work. Methodology, it's a descriptive approach. We use SABRE market intelligence data to compare OD and segment passengers at airport or route levels or country pair levels. Those SABRE MI passenger numbers are taken from MIDT and other industry sources. As far as we understand, Sabre is quite reliable, at least for markets not dominated by low-cost carriers, because in those markets we have lots of direct sales, and this is more difficult to model for Sabre. And we differ between two modules Sabre offers, the segment statistics and the OD statistics. Segment is, for example, the output, for example, passenger numbers, on a specific route or flight. So all passengers sitting on a plane, for example, between London and Dubai are segment passengers on this route. And OD passengers are passengers flying from a certain origin to a certain destination as ticketed, including stopovers and connections, or at least including short stopovers and indirect connections. So someone sitting on a plane from London to Dubai probably has Australia as a final destination. So the OD flow of this person is not equal to the segment flow, so to say, of this person. And we create a simple indicator, OD divided by segment passenger ratio, to show for a given route, for example from London to Dubai, the relationship between the OD passenger number and the segment passenger number. That means how many people are sitting on a direct flight between London and Dubai, and how many people fly from London to Dubai, which could also be via Frankfurt, for example. And if there is less OD than segment demand between 2 points, one could argue that route supply exceeds local demand, and probably in this case Dubai definitely serves its hub function. And if the proportion of OD passengers, or if there are more OD than segment passengers between 2 points, one could argue that not all OD passengers obviously could have been accommodated on direct flights, so this may be an indicator, if this indicator is drastic, that the route may be underserved. So if you have many, many more OD passengers between 2 points, but you have hardly any direct flights, in this case one could argue the route is underserved and there might be scope for direct flights. So how has traffic developed? Here you see the segment passengers in blue and the OD passengers in orange, and you see clearly that overall between Europe and the OE, segment passengers are more important than OD passengers. So there's definitely a big focus on the hub function of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but the OD segment ratio has increased from 33% in 2016 to 40% in 2023. This means that overall the UAE has gained in importance as a destination. So we have a higher share of OD passengers now who really want to fly into the UAE. Then we look at the European country level, and here we look at segment passengers again. At first, it also looks impressive here, like UK 47%, Germany 32% growth in the last 13 years. But compared to the smaller markets, this growth is relatively little. So we have smaller markets with much higher growth regarding segment passengers to the UAE, especially most smaller countries and Italy. And we have uneven COVID-19 recovery. For example, Germany is still struggling. You see the gray bar there shows that post-COVID-19 figures in Germany, in the UK, for example, are still below 2019 figures. So those countries still have not fully recovered, or traffic flows from these countries still have not fully recovered. If we look at the OD level, we see also that Germany and UK and France, the big markets, have grown relatively weakly over time, especially France with an OD plus of only 20% over 13 years. This is very little. We have high OD growth for most smaller countries again. It's probably difficult to see here, But for example, if we look at Latvia in the middle of the right figure, you see really that it's factor 5 or so, the passenger numbers have increased. Also here, interesting, probably Spain. Spain had high OD growth between 2010 and 2019, but since then, the growth has also come to a halt and is now, they are still below 2019 figures. We found that the only European countries without any direct flights to the UAE, I was surprised here, are Estonia and Iceland. All other European countries, we have defined Europe as EU, UK, and the EEA countries, Norway and Iceland, and Switzerland, have direct flights except for Estonia and Iceland. Interesting also, only Italy is directly connected with Sharjah. And also what we found interesting is that the new airport, Dubai World Central, has significant passenger volumes only from Germany. Also some passengers, it's the third column in the table, DWC, and you see there are some passengers from Netherlands, Luxembourg, Italy, but 35,000 passengers from Germany. This is interesting, and we have thought about what could be the reasons here, and probably it's a traffic light situation, because in Germany, Emirates and Fly Dubai and Etihad are only allowed to serve a maximum of 4 cities, and these cities are predefined. Since Emirates flies to 4 particular cities, Etihad has to fly to the same cities, and Fly Dubai would also have to fly to these 4 same cities. This means that from other German cities to the UAE, only German or EU carriers would be allowed to fly. And obviously, Lufthansa is only interested in flying from Frankfurt and Munich because this is where they have their hubs. So this only leaves room to German or European low-cost carriers, and those apparently prefer to fly to Dubai World Central because of cheaper fares, for cheaper airport charges, as we assume. Then we also looked at key origin destination flows with only limited non-stop or direct UAE connections. And we defined this as follows. So we look at the demand, OD demand, at the direct flight supply, and we look at airport pairs where OD demand is more than 100 passengers per week, points from where more than 100 people would like to fly to Dubai or to Abu Dhabi every week, but where segment passengers are, or segment passengers are below 100 passengers per week. And here we found that there are a number of, not so many, maybe about 10, 11 airports with no direct flight supply at all. This list is led by Malaga in Spain. We have also Gothenburg in Sweden, Tallinn, Edinburgh, Toulouse, Porto, and so on. Also Berlin to Abu Dhabi here in this case. So these are the cities with significant OD demand to either Dubai or Abu Dhabi, but without any direct flight supply. And Marseille, Vilnius, and Stuttgart have much more OD demand than direct flight supply. So there may probably be also potential for additional direct flights if traffic rights permit. So I come to the final 2 slides to conclude my presentation. Definitely the UAE have become an important destination, also in addition to the stopover and transfer function. All in all, this is a new figure which was not on the slides. OD traffic between Europe and the UAE has grown by, on average, 106% between 2010 and 2023. Segment traffic grew a little bit less, 97%, so you see the slight shift towards OD demand, meaning that the OD segment ratio has gone up to 40%. Highest demand, of course, is from the biggest countries, UK, Germany, and Italy, but dynamics have gone down a little bit here. These are major markets. COVID-19 restrictions have almost been overcome in most markets except for Sweden, Germany and Finland. And yeah, there are only a few cities and countries with sufficient demand not yet connected to the UAE, including Malaga, for example, and Estonia and Iceland. And some cities with much less supply than demand, like Marseille, Vilnius, or Stuttgart. And of course, there's scope for additional work, such as time series causalities, for example, possible reasons for segment supply being below or above certain thresholds. And one could also ex post try to find out if the OD segment passenger ratio is a good indicator for new flights in the past, if it has been. And of course, from our research perspective, the traffic light issue should be put on the agenda again to find out, yeah, what additional traffic lights could bring in terms of additional passengers and also additional tourists flying into the UAE. And vice versa. Thank you.
"34 seconds over." Very good. Okay, questions? One over here.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. My name is Shahir and I'm a student of Emirates Aviation University. My question covers two aspects. First of all, I want to ask that what are the key metrics which you guys just use to measure the efficiency of the passengers flow? Either it's towards UAE or around the globe towards UAE, or either it's been Europe and UAE. And the second aspect is that how you guys make it more like make it more profitable for the airlines.
Oops, I start with the second question. You mean profitable to fly?
Exactly.
I would say that the most obvious driver of air transport demand, of course, is GDP development. So if demand goes up, of course, airlines have more freedom also to increase fares. When demand goes down, of course, airlines, especially airlines who have a big network to entertain, of course, struggle. They have to fill empty seats, yields go down. This is what we have during crisis times. What I would definitely see is, in addition to the Emirates and Etihad network, we, of course, have these charter flights, for example, low-cost flights to World Central. And I think they benefit from limited traffic rights. So when traffic rights are limited, but there is lots of demand, they can easily sell their tickets to tour operators, and I would assume that they earn quite a lot of money by this, especially since they are very cost-effective. They fly to World Central, which has low airport charges. They fly at night times. Also from Turkey, maybe most of you know Pegasus Airlines. They have a hub in Istanbul. It's the second Istanbul airport, and they have many connections at night times to benefit from additional aircraft usage at nights, when established airlines, for example, in Western Europe, usually do not fly. So there are a lot of pillars to make such long flight segments profitable, I would say. Could you repeat your first question?
It was about like, what are the key, you can say, the key metrics which you guys usually use to efficiently measure the passenger flow.
Metrics?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, we have these segment passenger numbers and the OD passenger numbers, as I've mentioned. We can also, the SABRE database allows us to make a so-called segment split. For example, if you have a flight from Frankfurt to Dubai, you have 400 people on this flight, and SABRE will tell us how many of these passengers are local passengers. Those are passengers flying from Frankfurt to Dubai, starting their journey in Frankfurt and getting off the airport in Dubai. Then we have behind and beyond passengers. These are passengers which either come from another point, for example, the US, and change planes at Frankfurt and go on to Dubai, or passengers who start in Frankfurt and go via Dubai, for example, to Australia, behind and beyond. And we have bridge passengers. Those are passengers, for example, who come from New York, go to Frankfurt, go on to Dubai, and then go on to Tehran, for example. It's like a bridge. And in having such data, we can model, I think, almost everything regarding passenger flows, especially since we do not only have passenger numbers, but also RPK. I think most of you are aware of RPK, revenue passenger kilometers, which also reflect the distance and the revenues, and yields, and number of departures may be a good indicator. Yeah, so there are a lot of metrics depending on your research question. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions?
I wanted to ask regarding collecting and analyzing the OD segmentation ratios. What challenges are there to actually collect the accurate data when it comes to the flights from UAE to Europe?
You mean data accuracy? So if the data is good data or?
Yeah, accurate data.
Accurate data. I hope I got your question right, but the thing is, here we have to rely on the SABRE database, which to some extent, of course, is a black box because it's a commercial data provider, but they source their data from, for example, reservation systems, MIDT, yeah, you know, each ticket which is ticketed somewhere in the world goes into this system, and so they use it for their market intelligence database. And they make also assumptions regarding markets where they do not have sufficient data, like from low-cost carriers. What we, of course, do is, to the extent to which we are capable, we make plausibility checks. For example, we have official statistical data by the European Union, passengers at the airport level or passengers at the country level, and we compare such data with the aggregated data of SABRE, and usually these fit quite well. So the SABRE database seems to have high quality. I mean, I'm not a representative of SABRE here, so those people could tell a bit more. But the more aggregated you work, I think the better is the data quality. When you look into very details, probably the fair data, for example, is not 100% correct, of course, but yeah, I think for our analytical work and research work, overall this data is fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have the very last speaker of the entire conference. So there is no pressure to leave us on a high here. We have Ahmad Al-Swadi, who is the head of admissions and registration at the Dubai Police Academy, and who's going to be talking about an incredibly important aspect of aviation, which is methods of being able to enhance aviation security through employee engagement. So a key topic, and one which I'm sure will generate lots of questions.
Hopefully. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope I did not wrong anyone to be the last one today. It's a lot of pressure on me. But today I'll be presenting to you certain factors that we have done. We have done a study with my team from General Department of Human Resources in Dubai Police, and with the General Department of Airport Security. So what we try to do here is that we try to put a relationship between employee engagement and human factor errors. I'll go through the introduction. So what we try to do is that there are a lot of studies that comes into human factor errors and their effect. I told you guys I'm not lucky today, so. So it's the impact of employee engagement and reducing human factor error. We took a few ideas from different kinds of studies and we tried to implement it in the aviation industry. As you know, that human factor error results in 70 to 80% of issues happening in the aviation industry, whether it's security-wise, whether it's safety or maintenance. So there was a literature gap when it comes to putting employee engagement and the methodologies that implements in it in a way how we could reduce human factor errors. The purpose of the study was we wanted to explore its relationship, whether it's positive or negative, or whether it would have an impact on our employees. So what we tried to do is we did a full study on human factor errors and how they have been implemented and the relationship, whether it's financial and how it's significant to the aviation industry. And then we tried to put a relationship with employee engagement, whether it's turnaround, whether it's incentives, whether it's a positive relationship between you and your superior or you and your colleagues. And we implemented different kinds of methodologies and then we came up with a descriptive analysis for it. IKU have stated that there are 8 different factors when it comes to employee engagement and how it can reduce human factor error. We took this source from IKU. As you can see, the first one starts with a lack of communication network. If there was a lack of communication, what we try to do is that we try to do a few comparative studies between doctors and patients, doctors and nurses. We try to do to look at comparative studies between engineers and issues that they would face in regards to their constructions. So we try to do that comparative study and apply it in the aviation industry. And we could have seen that there is a lack of communication and there is a distraction for the employees. If your employee would go into a burnout, then you will start having issues with the outcome, and especially when it comes to security and safety, which is the main goal that we are working in Dubai Airport. There was a limited research in regards to human factor errors in relationship to security perspective when it comes to the aviation industry. And this is what we try to target. This is what we try to answer in regards to our objectives and in regards to our questions. So what we try to do is that we took 2 different kinds of methodologies. We would like to thank Gallup. Gallup gave us their methodology in a way that we started using Gallup. We got an approval from them to use their Q12 questions to check the employee engagement in their workplace. And then we try to do a trial runs in the General Department of Airport Security. Our trial runs, we did around, I'll show you this, we did around 4 phases. So we started with phase 1. We collected data at the beginning, and we saw how employee engagement was there and how it was presented. And then we did an implementation phase for around a couple of months, and then we collected the data again. We went through 2 different methodologies. The first methodology was for us to analyze the data and collect the data, which was through Gallup. And then we took one source from NITE. The source was showing us different kinds of solutions that we can implement in our workplace and how we can increase the engagement. So what we have seen is that we divided employees into different kinds of demographics. So we divided them by age, experience, and workplace. And we have seen there was a positive relationship. There is a positive relationship with an engaged employee in reducing human factor errors. We did a couple of trial runs. I think it's here. So we did a couple of trial runs, but the difference is that we did the trial runs based on us. So the only disadvantage that we had at the beginning of our study, and we hope that certain studies will look into it, is that we targeted different kind of employees in different positions to see what type of human errors that they will come up with. And then we implemented these engagement factors that we have. And then we can see that with the procedural non-compliance. So for example, we would put that employee into the spot and we would do a trial run for us to collect the data. We saw a communication failure. It was not a failure as in a big disadvantage, but we saw that the communication between superiors and employees in certain positions would affect the outcome of that employee. If the human factor error would present, it would be presented because if there is not enough communication between superiors or between different type of orders that would come to the employees. So what we have done is that we started with a trial with pushing the employees, and during our trials, we saw that there was collected data of 31 human factor errors. And once we did the trial and once we did the tests for them again, after the employee engagement, and we did our initiatives, that was presented by night. So what we have seen is that we have reduced the human factor error to 11. So there was a positive relationship with it, and if it was in a longer period of time, in a longitudinal study, we could have come up with different kind of effects on that employee engagement. As you can see, these are the Q12 questions. They are in the longest study. It took 20 years for Gallup to come up with these questions, and they're still working on it. As you can see, we did the Gallup 12. And I think the main question that is important to me and important to my colleagues and co-authors that when we worked on it, it is what's expected from you at work. If you come up and you want to work and you want to reach and achieve something and you want to reduce an error that you can mitigate, is that you would be able to understand what is expected from you at work. So what we have seen is that once we started doing our initiatives internally in the General Department of Airport Security, we have seen that there is a positive relationship and we started reducing human factor errors. The combination of what we have done, especially in such cases, is that once you put human engagement and you put human factor errors on one side, and you put certain initiatives that any department that would come up with, you would be able to have a relationship. And I think that what we have done is that, especially in such case, is that we approved that ICAO's initiatives in regards to employee engagement, in regards to burnout, in regards to have employees with a certain set of standards and expectations, you would be able to reduce these factor errors. If it was not only mentioned in security perspective, you can implement that to cabin crew, you can implement human factor errors to maintenance. There is a vast field for you to be utilizing it, especially in the aviation industry. Applying certain kind of engagement. So what we have done, especially when it comes to our results and finding, dedicated initiatives that can come up. Once you segregate your demographics and you know what young people or Gen Z want in their workplace and what's their expectation, that would be a positive idea, that for you to be able to target certain initiatives for certain generations that come to work. You would be able to understand from certain type of methodologies, certain type of questions, you would be able to understand what each demographic that you have at work, what they're expecting from you as an employer or as a security advisor for them. So what we did is that we did human HR business partner for different type of demographics in the Dubai Police General Department for Airport Security. And these HR business partners came up with different ideas. These small ideas that gave a significance to the human factor error because it was targeted, it was tailor-made to each group of demographics. Limitation, as I said earlier, I think the limitation of the study is that we have to do it on a longer period of time. We don't have to set ourselves to a certain, yes, they're approved and it's a proven methodology, but we can do it as a vast, we can increase the number of questions, we can put the education as part, so each employee is different than the other. We have to check the education of each employee, we have to put a certain set of standards for employees for them to participate in such trials. I think before closing out and getting your question, guys, what I want to say is that, especially when it comes to this conclusion, we wanted to see using such trials in our confined study. We wanted to see if there was a positive relationship for it and if would it reduce human factor errors. And it was there for a 6 months period of time. What we want to do is that we want to increase the number of initiatives that would happen to employees, that would happen to cabin crew, that would happen to security officers, and we want to see the result when it would come into 1 or 2 years, and we would see its effect. Its effect is not only life-threatening, it is the airport. So it's a sanitized area. You have to maintain the security. But for a commercial perspective, it would affect companies, it would affect entities into billions of dollars of loss because of a food poisoning situation or because of forgetting a nail on an engine. So applying such methodologies for human factor error would affect, and you would get results on different type of fields. Thank you very much, and I'm ready for your questions, guys.
That's a perfect example of exactly what you want from your last speaker. He finished early.
Thank you.
Very good. But that does give us lots more time for questions. We can't let him off. So, questions?
I wanted to
Could
know,
you,
like,
could
what
you
are
speak
the...
up, please? Because the acoustics here are not very good for us listening to you.
Sure.
Thank
Am
you.
I clear now? Okay. So my question is, like, what are the consequences that are followed with inaccuracies, and how quickly do you respond to them? Do you make use of the Q12 framework? Like, how helpful is it?
So you mean in a real life situation?
Exactly, yeah.
So according to me, there are no consequences happening now, and there is nothing wrong happening. In our trial, what we had tried to do is that we tried to mitigate the risk. There is a difference between of reacting, and there is a different type of mitigation that we try to do. In the General Department of Airport Security, so for us, is that for something to go wrong, we try to mitigate it at the beginning. So we would have a set of protocols, a set of training for our staff. So before they go and join the field, they would have that set of standards. We have vigilant officers and we have vigilant superiors. So what we try to do is that we put them in with the right tools before they go to the field. There are certain situations that happens when something goes wrong, but we have the categorized methodology for us to present it. So we go from category A to category B and to category C for us to take action.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I've got some, if nobody else is going to...
I think it's my uniform, the issue.
Right. When you're talking about engagement,
Yes.
are you talking about engagement in terms of communication, or are you talking about engagement in terms of the staff engaging with understanding their role in procedure?
So we did engagement in night at all study. It was divided into 4 different factors. The first engagement is that in regards to recognition and reward. The second one was in regards to superiors and leaders. The third one was in communication between your subordinates and colleagues. And the fourth one was the outcome between you and different customers. So what we try to do is that we try to target these 4 different factors. The first factor is that we educated leaders, we educated superiors that in the workplace, that they would explain to their employees what they would require from them, what they would do. In regards to recognition, look, Dubai government gives a lot of recognition to its employees. What we try to do is that we try to publicly announce it again and again in our daily briefs. So to tell our employees that what type of benefits that they will get, what type of rewards that they would get, what type of incentives. So sometimes the employee would feel that he's not recognized for whatever work that he's doing. So we started reminding them what type of recognition that they're getting. So we targeted these. We did a youth council in the General Department of Airport Security. The youth council have been presented since 2017, but we reintroduced the youth council. So we made a voice for the youth working in the General Department of Airport Security. In regards to engagement, we brought people from HR, and they start working as an HR business partner in the General Department of Airport Security. You know, Dubai Police, we have 24,000 staff, and they work in different type of fields. But we try to put the right people to come and help them mitigate the risk, and for them to understand the role that they're doing.
Final one from me.
Okay.
You said on one of the slides that human factors in security has unique features. So what are the unique human factors features of security applications?
So what we found, I think from our study, what we found, the main part of human factor errors when it comes to security is communication. If you see something wrong, you're supposed to tell your superior. You have to know the hierarchy of movement of knowledge and movement of information. The second that you would have an issue of how to portray or how to send or how to give, even how to wave your hand to your superior, to give that knowledge, you would know that there will be consequences to it. So for example, if you're working in a security station and you're playing with your phone, or you don't have an idea of what that baggage has or what that bag has, and you found out something, you found out, let's say, 10 kg of confiscated items. If you don't know how to initiate a communication method between you and your superior or you and your colleagues, then that consequence is like a snowball effect, especially when it comes to communication. That's how we found out that communication, especially when it comes to airport security, is a key factor.
Okay. Any final questions?
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just before we pass on to the very last session, I'd like to thank both of our speakers here, and I'd like to thank all the speakers that have been involved in the conference so far. And since this is the end, this is as far as we're going to go, I think we'll all agree it's been a very interesting and challenging and provocative set of speakers, and I'll see you all again hopefully in 2 years' time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorian. Okay, we're moving on to the closing. I would like to ask Professor Zindoga, you want to give out your last words, please?
Thank you, Sharon. I'll be very quick. You done? Thank you, everyone. I'll be very quick. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Emirates Aviation University, it is with great pleasure to give closing remarks of the 5th International Aviation Management Conference. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge my fellow colleagues and members of the organizing committee for their hard work in ensuring that the conference runs smoothly. I believe many valuable experiences have been shared and important lessons have been learned through the presentations and interactions during the past 2 days. The theme for this year's conference was aviation trends, advancements, regulations, and sustainability. We have discussed the global efforts made to innovate and adapt to emerging challenges such as sustainable aviation practices, innovation in drone technology, and climate impact on air travel. This conference continues to serve as a unique forum for fostering dialogue between academics and aviation industry delegates who bring a wealth of expertise and a diverse array of compelling topics. Over the past 2 days, we have witnessed informative presentations that contribute to advancing our industry, including advancements in airline management, the role of artificial intelligence in enhancing operational efficiency. As we look ahead, close collaboration across various sectors in the aviation industry is essential for establishing innovative, robust international operating models. The insights shared at this conference, particularly on sustainable practices and technological advancements, will serve as a valuable foundation for developing frameworks that enhance operational efficiency and promote sustainability and growth in the aviation sector. I hope that you also enjoyed networking opportunities throughout the conference, and you'll take advantage of these opportunities to advance research in aviation management and solve challenges facing the industry. Finally, I would like to thank all participants for your gracious presence and invaluable contributions. Additionally, I would like to convey my gratitude to our strategic partners, Dubai Police, General Civil Aviation Authority, and the Emirates Group. To our sponsor, Dubai Duty Free, esteemed keynote speakers, and the organizing and technical committees, thank you for making this event possible. IMAC is a biannual event, so we look forward to seeing you again in 2026, when we shall reconvene to discuss other topical issues affecting the aviation industry. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you again for your participation and wishing you all a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Zindoga. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and participating in the 5th International Aviation Management Conference 2024, and hope to see you all in 2026. Thank you, and have a good rest of the day.
Estamos bien, ¿no?